he looked at the Imperium and understood that his father's dream had already failed.
Welcome, Initiate. Roboute Guilliman has returned from stasis, the Avenging Son, the first loyal Primarch to return, master of order, reason, and excel, brought back to save humanity from the slow collapse of 10,000 years. That is a good story, but there is a problem. Guilliman has seen the Imperium as it truly is, because he walked through its systems, read its records, and stood before the Golden Throne itself. And he's not trying to fix it. The Ecclesiarchy is not dismantled. The imperial truth is not restored, and he has not corrected the lie at the center of the entire system. So we are left with a question. If Roboute Guilliman is the most rational mind humanity has ever produced, why is he allowing an irrational empire to continue? This broadcast aims to answer that very question. Let us begin with the sanctioned version of the man himself. Before the heresy, Roboute Guilliman was not just a warrior, he was something far more dangerous, an empire builder. On Macragge, he didn't simply conquer, he organized and optimized all the logistics of the planets, creating Ultramar, a functioning empire of 500 worlds. The trade was booming, bureaucracy worked perfectly, and armies were supplied before they were needed because he understood something the others did not. Victory is not the battle, it's what happens after. His entire philosophy was built on one single principle: engineering the future not by faith or hope, but through structure, logic, and control. That philosophy aligned perfectly with his adoptive father, Connor Guilliman. No gods, strange magic and illusions, just reason and progress. And Roboute Guilliman enforced that truth. He burned worlds that rejected it and punished those who defied it, because to him, that was a cause of instability, and that kills systems. Now you understand what kind of person returned to the Imperium of Man, not a hero, but a system architect, and he has just woken up inside a system that should not work. That was a kind way of saying that the Imperium is in deep He expected decay, but not this kind of transformation of the entire Imperium. This Imperium, he finds, is not the one he helped build. It is something else. A civilization that runs on a contradiction with the imperial truth gone. In its place, Guilliman found faith. Faith in the Emperor, once the destroyer of religions, is now worshipped as a god, with a state controlled by the Ecclesiarchy and a priesthood built on the very lie Guilliman once helped suppress. But somehow, the Imperium still stands. By every metric Guilliman understands, this system should have collapsed thousands of years ago with the corruption, the inefficient bureaucracy, and bloated beyond any capability. Yet this Imperium survives not because it works, but because something is holding it together. Guilliman begins the reconstruction where he cans, launches crusades, remove corruption, and reorganizes command structures. But he quickly realizes the problem is not at the surface, but its foundation. The Imperium is held together by three broken but necessary pillars. Guilliman doesn't believe his father is a god. This is not interpretation, is a fact. He despises the Ecclesiarchy because he sees it as a distortion, a perversion of everything the Imperium was meant to be. But he allows it to exist because he understands something the priests don't. Religion is not just belief, it is infrastructure. It binds worlds together, gives a meaning to sacrifice, and justifies endless war. If you remove it, the Imperium fractures instantly, and not into a reform, but a civil war. And that is the last thing Roboute Guilliman needs, so he doesn't destroy the lie. Then Guilliman reaches Terra, and standing before the Golden Throne, he speaks with his father. Something answers, but not clearly, and not as a man. What he encounters is not the Emperor he remembers. It is something fragmented, a presence with a consciousness stretched across 10,000 years of pain. It doesn't greet him as a son, but as a function, a component in a system still trying to operate, and that moment changes Roboute forever, because he understands something immediately. That thing on the throne is not a ruler waiting to return, it is a mechanism that cannot stop, and not preserving the Emperor, it is containing what remains, and whatever remains is no longer his father. This is where the system's reveals its final contradiction, because the lie works. Faith generates power, literally. Saints rise, miracles occur, and the warp is reacting to it. Guilliman sees this himself in battle, on the edge of death, saved by something that should not exist, creating the final trap. Faith is false, but it is very effective. It protects humanity from chaos, fuels resistance, and creates outcomes logic cannot, which means removing it doesn't create truth. It just removes a weapon that still works in a broken system. At this point, Guilliman has all the information he needs, and there are only two possible conclusions. Either the Imperium can be saved, or it can't. I know, right, Genius Primarch? If it can be saved, the path is obvious but difficult. Restore the Imperial truth, remove the Ecclesiarchy, and rebuild the system from its original design. But Guilliman doesn't do this, because he understands what would happen. The moment the truth is revealed, the system collapses. Faith disappears or changes to other gods, unity of the Imperium fractures, and the psychological foundation of the Imperium vanishes overnight. And with it, chaos becomes stronger. This is the realization that the Imperium no longer runs on truth, but on belief, and belief cannot be replaced, only removed. So Guilliman is left with a choice: to tell the truth and end humanity quickly, or maintain the lie and let it continue rotting. Guilliman chooses stability over fracture. He allows the Ecclesiarchy to preach, the Emperor to be worshipped as a god, and allows the system to continue exactly as it is. Not because he believes in it, but because removing it would be worse. This is where the narrative breaks, because Guilliman is not trying to save the Imperium. He is trying to control how it fails. Every reform he makes is limited and calculated, improving the efficiency when it can, and extend the survivability of the people. But he doesn't attempt restoration because it isn't possible. The system cannot be fixed, only sustained for just a little bit longer. That means Guilliman understands something, with his Primarch brain, that the Imperium is already dead. So there are two versions of Guilliman. The first is the Avenging Son, the returned Primarch who will save the Imperium and restore humanity's future, a hero and a symbol of hope. The second one is a strategist who has seen the system in full motion and understood its dependencies, making a decision no one else could. He will not save it. He will manage it, like a doctor treating a terminal patient. Every speech he gives reinforces the lie, and every victory extends the timeline toward delay. Because the truth would not free humanity, it would destroy it. Roboute Guilliman does what he has always done. He builds a system, but this time is not to last, just to hold long enough for something else to survive when it finally breaks. The Imperium calls him its savior, but the file suggests something else. The Illuminati broadcast network doesn't tell you what to believe, but the question remains: is Guilliman preserving humanity or prolonging its death? Roboute Guilliman's report is closed. Hope you liked it, and thanks for watching.